Welcome to the Customer Smarts podcast, where you'll discover smarter ways to deliver customer experiences. I'm your host, Justin Stafford. Becoming customer-centric is something most organisations are trying to do. They often have a strategy and some pieces of the puzzle, like a voice of customer program and even a customer innovation team, but are sometimes struggling to operate in a truly customer-centric way. One of the most crucial parts to help drive this transition to a customer-centric operating model is your customer intelligence and how it's structured. Having a unified, clear picture of who your customers really are across the entire organisation helps drive connection between all teams and departments and is a fuel for every organisation. Interestingly, I was at the customer show a few months ago where Vida Ashrina Dulst, head of design from Endeavour Group, who are responsible for our favourite alcohol shops, Dan Murphy's and BWS, took us through her team's journey on designing their customer intelligence. So I decided to invite her on the podcast to explore this very topic. So in this episode, we're going to dive into how they design their customer intelligence, how her team puts it into practice, and how they were able to embed it in the rest of the organisation. Welcome, Vida. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hi, Justin. Thank you for having me.
Well, I really like your presentation at the customer show. Many organisations don't really spend enough time thinking about how to design and structure their customer intelligence. So I really like the way your team approached it and the way you talked through your experience there. Can you take us on a journey, I guess, at a high level of, firstly where you started and what were the key overall steps in that process?
Thank you. Yeah, it's a journey and still is. It's always evolving. So the key, I guess, for us is to keep iterating and learning. But I'm going to take you back to the initial journey. So we started, as we are like a business with different brands, we have different information about our customers. So, but one thing that we probably don't really have is a reassurance of how we talk about our customers in the same language. So that's where we see the need for us to organize ourselves and get the same view of our customers and the same language, basically. So we started to understand, okay, what do we have? The information about our customer. We have our e-com persona. We have our customer segmentation, but is that enough? Or do we have a digital version as well, like our customer experience when it comes to digital journey? We also have when it comes to in-store journey. So what we did, we went back, look into this information that we've got, layer them over, and do a bit of a translation. So by the end of that process, we come up with an end-to-end view of omnichannels, I would say both digital and non-digital experience, and look into our customers, into their behavior as well. So beyond segmentation. And by doing that, we also understand when we talk about the journey of the customers, we have different way of talking about the stages. Sometimes we say payment, sometimes we say transaction. I know it's simple, but the same language is the key. So that's when we decided to actually, let's align on what is our customer experience framework. So we come up with the stage, the usual customer journey from entice, enter, buy, and experience all the way to loyalty. So that's how we started. And then because of that, we also realized how we organize ourselves. So do we organize based on this journey or not? At the time, we organize ourselves based on the customer's touch point. We have a team that works specifically on app. We have a team that works specifically on website. But then we realize at the end of the day, customer can swap in between. So we start to look into, okay, how about we organize ourselves based on the customer journey? But because of that, we also realized, so we tried that for about a few years. We also realized, actually, we might in a risk of creating silo in the customer experience as well. So we reiterate again. and then we look more into the domain of the area. However, because we already learn about the customer journey and get used to in that framing, we still tackling our customer problem through the journey, but we organize ourselves based on the actual domain of their experience. I hope that makes sense. So basically, the journey is full of iteration and the learning.
You talked us through some archetypes that you created, which are really interesting in the way you, segmented that across. You had these axes and had some really great segments, which I think we could all relate to because it was around, buying alcohol, which, a lot of us like to do. Can you just talk us through, I guess, how you got there in terms of that structure and I think that axis really helped you decide. I think it was around interaction and price sensitivity, which helped you then figure out what those core kind of archetypes were. Can you sort of just talk us through that a little more?
Sure, absolutely. So when we talk about archetypes, we are referring to organizing our customer based on their behavior. Yeah, because we have the customer segment where we obviously slicing or segmenting our customer based on their age, purchase value, and all of that kind of stuff. Anything that you can touch back or relate it back to the data that you've got. But what we're missing is actually the behavior part. But how do you identify and simplify behavior without oversimplifying it, right? So that's when we're like, okay, what is the main key call out here that we need to look in terms of customer activities or behavior? So that's when we come on to, okay, how about what motivate the customer as well, which is one of them is price. So that's when we look into, okay, how much sensitivity or how much they care about the price that they have. So we look into the axis of the high, price driven compared to the non, I don't care so much about the price. And another one is how much time do they willing to spend in terms of making that decision or interacting with us. Then when we start to go into dwelling time, which is like the time that they spend in terms of making their decision. So we come up with these two axes, which is the price, sensitivity, and then the time that they're willing to spend with us. And based on that, we will be able to identify where they're sitting and based on the needs and the behavior that they've got.
And are you able to sort of run us through those archetypes that you landed on?
Sure, absolutely. So the archetype that we have, we've got 5 of them. So transactional, price focus, price sensitive explorer, quick quality, and premium explorer. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. So as we discussed before, all these archetypes sit across the quadrants of the price sensitivity axis and the interaction axis, from low to high interaction. So in the first quadrant of between low interaction and high price sensitivity, we have the transactional customers. So this is the kind of customer that I want to get in and out quickly. For me, shopping for liquor is just practical. So I buy what I know I like already. As you could see, this is the kind of archetypes or customer that don't interrupt them. They just want to be in and out. That's it, right? And then the second in that quadrant is price focus. So this is the customer that is, I want to try to be as quick as possible in deciding what I buy, but price drive my decision. So this type of customers, they have more kind of like in the price, high sensitivity, but then the interaction is a bit higher than transactional, but still in the kind of like, the interaction is still quick,
Still quick, yeah.
Yeah. And then we move to this quadrant, which is between price sensitivity and high interaction customers on the top hand corner. So this is a price sensitive explorer. What does it mean? So this is the customer that I like to explore and review what's available and what I might like to try before deciding what I buy. But after that, then price also drive my decision. So they still care about the price, but they actually willing to take a little bit more time to review, to compare, to see what's available. So now we're gonna go to the fourth one, which is more in the lower end of price sensitivity, and kind of like in the middle of the interaction. This is the customer that we call quick quality customers. So these are the customer that I try to be as quick as possible in deciding what I buy, but quality actually drive my decision. So compared to what we have before, that driven by price, these customers still want to be quick, but they care about the quality. And then last but not least, this is the very end of the spectrums. We call them premium explorer. This is the customer that sit in that quadrant of less price sensitivity and high interaction. So basically, this is a customer that I like to explore and review what available and what I might like to try before deciding what to buy. Quality then what drive my decision. So not so much about the price. So those are the five customers archetype that we have. And to add to that, when it comes to customer archetype, it doesn't stick with you. So think of it like a badge. I can today be a price sensitive, probably, or I can today be a premium explorer customers. Let's say I'm exploring my wine trajectory, right? I want to really explore what next Bordeaux type that I've got and want to learn about it, the origin, the winemaker, and all of that because it's for my collection. But on another day, I'm on the way to my barbecue. I need something really quick. So I just go to the drive-through of the BWS and I just want to grab this rosé, and I don't need it to be super expensive either. I just want to in and out. I know which one. Côte de Rosé, for example, I just go in, out. So I can be on the same day to these two archetypes based on my mission.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Funnily enough, yesterday I was a premium explorer, so I wanted to spend a bit more time buying a nice bottle of wine at Dan Murphy's. Picked up a nice bottle of Penfolds, but then at other times I sort of know it's sort of a habitual purchase, and I know exactly I'm just going in buying the same type of beer or whatever it is, and I already sort of know when I just want to get in and out, like you say. So it's interesting how you can switch different modes, as a buyer. It's really interesting, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's really great how you I guess created those archetypes by behavioral based traits as opposed to some of the other segmentations you see that's more transactional or product driven or age based type of segments. How has that sort of really helped you down the track and I guess design better? Or how has that sort of helped you in different ways?
Of course, we need them all. So these archetypes not replace our segmentation. It's the matter of giving us a more clarity on decision making and also in creating the right services and product for our customers. So how does that help us? Mainly actually in conversation, but also in prioritization. So I'm going to give you an example. If we're working on, let's say, our website, and then we need to consider, okay, which customer archetype that we mainly targeted in what area. So you guys probably, the audience might familiar with Dan's Daily, right? So that's part of the Dan Murphy's as well, where we focus more on educating customers on the products and the wine. So that is the type of archetypes that we look into the potentially premium explorer or the customer that actually cared and want to spend more time in understanding about the product. So why is that matter? Because it doesn't mean we don't cater the other customers, but this actually help us to really identify what do these customer care when they are in this mode. So we can actually a bit more focus and prioritize when it comes to the feature, even what we're going to do first, and by understanding how many customer are we targeted, and then what are their purchase value as well, it helped from prioritization mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then have you been able to map those archetypes to data to quantify these archetypes in any way? So I know it's a bit of a challenge, but have you been able to do that in any shape or form?
Yes, we have actually. We started it, but with archetype, because it's not like segment where you can map one-to-one easily. With archetypes, you need to do a little bit of observation, obviously, and then there are some elements that you could identify straight away, like dwelling time, for example. Like how long they stayed in, on a page, and then also how many pages, like click through, that they go. You can tell based on that. So obviously it's hypothesis driven. You start it and then you monitor and then you see the pattern. So we have mapped them onto our session recording, for example. When we segment our customers, we also have mapped them onto our analytic platform, our analytic so based on the customer behavior, so we map them in there, and now we're also trying to map them on another data platform that we've got. So we keep trying to integrate this element, but it takes time, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are a few ways to identify those customer behaviors, and
correct.
So online and in store, you're able to sort of do it in both realms.
Yep, definitely. We started with online initially, but then we also look into in-store, and then how do we actually try to stitch the data together based on their in-store interaction. And we also have obviously a customer that have members as well, scan rate and all of that kind of stuff. But again, archetype is not one-to-one mapping. It's more for us to understand the behavior, like the volume of this type of behavior.
Yeah, okay. And I guess in a general sense, where can you go wrong with designing archetypes? You've done a great job with yours, but, I've seen many pretty average archetypes or personas or segmentation. Where can you go wrong or with that type of project? What shouldn't you do?
What shouldn't you do is making up stories. Okay, so when you say what can go wrong sometime, let's say when we don't update or when we make assumption, when we don't cross back to our data, that's when I think we probably limit ourselves onto the real value of understanding our customers. Because sometimes you got organization or company come up with persona, but this persona is different than archetype, right? Because persona is personified, so we can connect with the user. But then when we start to make up this persona and then don't validate it, that's when it's dangerous, because then we're just making assumption of what this customer need, and when we don't connect that back to the data that we've got, so we're making these things up, then that's when I think it goes wrong. So you just need to validate your hypothesis. You start somewhere with this hypothesis, and then let's test it.
Yeah. Okay. Can you maybe talk us through then the difference that you see between customer segmentation, archetypes, and personas? What's the difference between the three?
Yeah, good question, because we actually do talk about this a lot, and it's actually part of our adoption strategy. So imagine a upside down triangle. So that's how I like to visualize it. You have the segmentation on the top. So the segmentation is easy. When I say easy, it means you can pinpoint exactly to the data. You segment your customers based on either let's say demographic, because you can pinpoint that, right? You have data exactly. So it's a touch. You segment them based on the product that they buy, or based on the price that they have. So it is it's very easy to get it quantitatively proven. When it comes to segmentation, it gives you numbers, it gives you all this data. And then you go to archetypes, where it's still utilizing the data of the quantitative data, but they also focus more on qualitative as well. So it's both. They look, but probably more need a bit of qualitative because they're behavior based. So one is, let's say, demographic, quantitative. Second is behavior. And then the third one is persona. This is where it's like your psychographic. So what I mean by psychographic, so when it comes to persona, is even more details. So you will start to look into their age as well. It's an example, basically. It's almost like you pull one of the behavior and the segment. You put it as a person so you can relate and imagine. You even add what do they think, what their value. You give them a name, you bring them to life. I think that's what the difference. While archetype is not as alive as persona, but also not as numbers only as segment.
Yeah.
So they're just different level of depth.
Yeah, it just sort of sits in the middle. It's sort of almost that leaping off point, and it's nice to have those personas floating around the office so people can relate to them. You put a nice picture of often still one of your friends or someone you can find around the internet who fits the profile.
And also another things about persona, they are very domain focused. You can have marketing persona because you can have it project based, you can have it service based, while archetype is because it's behavior based. So actually is the most, I would say, the middle ground. So you can take it anywhere. But if you just use segment alone, probably it's not enough because you don't have enough behavior. But then if you want to bring into your product and service, that's when you go into persona because it's more detailed and more specific to that area that you want to design.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think sometimes they can be, a bit too theoretical, and I've seen it being done, in a very theoretical, or let's say sometimes research companies who don't, design things, they create this psychological, and it works. It sounds really good, but then people struggle to put it into practice, or sometimes they're too product centric and it's shaped all around the product. So, that creates other problems, or it can be too transactional kind of based. Have you seen that in the past of, people sort of getting it wrong or companies struggling to move forward because their segmentation or archetypes, the way they've structured it is more in that kind of way?
Yeah, actually, and that's the reason why we keep talking to people that you need all the three layers. It's depend on when you need them, because either one is too high level information that didn't give you a deeper understanding to why. Let's say if you just stick with the segment, it's good. It gives you numbers, how many, I'm just going to give example for our business, like how many customer at a certain age that purchase something, or maybe their income, but does actually that influence their purchase behavior? Maybe yes, maybe not, because you could have someone like Jen's, let's say millennials, that have a certain kind of behavior compared to a different behavior. So you could have a millennials that have this income versus another incomes, and their behavior is different, what they care are different, right? So that's too, I guess, like you said, too transactional and too little information, but it does give you numbers. And then when you add to that behavior, that give you numbers and motivation and the way they act. But then you still don't know, okay, that's enough, but what if I'm going to talk about the marketing specifically? What do this person care? Because if someone, let's say they're right wing versus left wing, that's when you started to bring your persona, right? Because persona then is very detailed, but into other area is irrelevant sometimes. That's too detailed. We don't need that information. We just need this information. So I've seen that if you use this persona, it can be seen as fluffy if it's not necessary, but it can also seen as very dry if you just use the segment, if you don't have enough backup information.
Yeah, so you got to have that balance.
Right, balance. I guess. Yeah, and what you need.
So. Yeah, and I guess like being behavioural based is really the key, because I think it's easier to identify those behaviours, and I think you can have in your segments, you could have different people, different ages with the same behaviours. So rather than if you do it by age, then I think that leads you down the wrong path.
That's it. Yeah. We see it as a sweet spot, you start in there, you can dial it down, dial it up, you can go deeper, more details or less details.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Can you share how the archetypes have helped you operate better as a design team, and how, like, if you look now at what you've got and how you're operating versus sort of, going back doing the personas, and how it's helping you design better and deliver better experiences?
Absolutely. I think since we got the archetypes, of course, like we said, it's a journey. So now when we talk in our product team, for example, we are really clear into, which customer we're talking about. Rather than designing for everyone, then sometimes you mean designing for no one, you actually can be a little bit more deliberate of starting point in terms of, especially for different feature, different service, different product, what kind of customer do we really actually looking into? A good example that we often use is actually, it's not even a digital example, it's a format example. So we recently launched our Martinplace seller, as you're probably aware, and it's more kind of like high-end areas and stuff. So our initial assumption or hypothesis, okay, this is the customer that probably expect the white gloves experience you deliver within 30 minutes of their ordering and all of that kind of stuff. But then we realized, we look into this Premium Explorer, it's the type of customer that actually probably wine collectors or already have their own cellars. And so for them, actually, if I talk about wine, if I want to take wine somewhere, I want to be able to tell a story about this wine, right? And a speedy delivery is irrelevant, because if I'm in a rush, I'll probably already have something on my cellar to take rather than have something that just arrived. So what more interesting or more important for me is to have that really exclusive time if I go to that store, or get like a good exploration more about the wine. So by doing that alone, you realize then we can deprioritize when it comes to that white glove delivery and focusing on a different area of the in-store experience that this type of customer care and value more.
Yeah, okay. And then I guess the next challenge is getting the rest of the organisation to use the archetypes. That's typically the biggest thing. What have you done to ensure that they're getting used across the organisation in a practical sense?
So we're trying everything and it's been working, and of course still on a journey. I think the key is to include and work with as many people as possible. So we have a working group that, champion and understand the archetype from different area of the business. So that's kind of like a really cross-functional team. We bring people from analytic, people from e-coms, people from the product team, and data engineering, BAs, delivery. So everyone, basically, we get everyone in this group for them to understand and what it means for each practitioners, because that way, it's relevant to me, and then as a group, why it's relevant to us. So we start with a working group. We identify different opportunities. We do a lot of data integration, of course, and we look into different artifacts as well that help us to get the uptake and the adoption of the archetypes, and a lot of influencing. So a lot of talking about archetypes. So some of the team probably being known as the archetype champions and stuff. So they always talk about it. But yeah.
Have you found that it's connected different teams when, previously they might not have been? So, maybe got product teams talking together around, the Premium Explorer or the different... Have you found that sort of started to kick into gear a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Because now... our leadership talk about it as well, and it's become one of our strategic pillars. And in the product team, when we do prioritization, we actually use identify archetypes in terms of our users as well. When we talk about, business value, and we input that into the calculation as well. We look into dashboard creation as well, or scorecard in terms of our archetypes, and look into our performance. So we try to pretty much infiltrate it everywhere. So it's actually, people get familiar and talk about it. It does change because we started to see where it's being prioritized or talk about even more.
Yeah, what are the, I guess, positive impacts you've seen by going, all the way through? Sounds like you put a lot of effort to get everyone, firstly, understanding these archetypes, but then making it easy for them to use. What are those, I guess, some of the impacts, or even some of the examples that you've seen where people come up to you and go, they start quoting the archetypes back to you as if you've never heard of them before? I think that's when you're actually winning the game. What are some of those types of examples you might have?
Oh, absolutely. For us, I think the biggest one is when one of the strategic priority call out that we should experiments and based on and prioritize based on our archetypes. So that's massive, right?
Yeah.
And that's come from the strategic and the leadership as well in this area. So for us, it's like, this is a good win because we have other people talk about archetypes rather than the design team.
Yeah, for me, it's such a crucial step in becoming, a lot of organizations struggle by being product centric. And I think having those, archetypes is such a great way to help people understand, particularly ones that aren't in the, design or marketing spaces. Having that centralized, behavioral driven segments or archetypes really helps, I think, pave the way to become customer centric. Is that sort of what you've started to see?
Absolutely, because our company is really, customer is at the forefront every time. So it's something that we're blessed, I guess, the company. I mean, like a lot of other retail company, we care about our customers. So the archetype is not replacing that or not a silver bullet, is actually give us a little bit more sharper edge when we talk about customers. Who are we talking about? And help us organize ourselves better, prioritize better, align better, and speak in the same language. Because you can talk about customer in a million ways, right? But then, okay, what is our way? So that actually help anchor how we collaborate, I guess. That's kind of like the crack of it more than the theory about the archetypes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess it gives you those foundations where you can have those conversations where you're using the same language around the customers, which I think is what where you started, what you were explaining. And that's the biggest problem, I think, in organizations, that, there's no, struggling to get that centralized view and centralized communications around the customer, but also then aligning the data to that and doing it in a way that's easy enough to understand. So it's not too theoretical, so anyone can really pick it up and understand in all different aspects of the business. I think once you're in that place, which obviously is hard to get to, like you've explained, but once you're there, then at least you've got a foundation to drive those conversations and build awareness, and help drive that sort of more collaborative, customer, centric or obsessed culture, which is really interesting.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. We still have a long way to go, though. But
what are the next steps? What do you see as the next things you kind of want to implement? Or obviously, it takes time for this to get traction. What are some of the things on the horizon?
I think the key here is to enable others to utilize it. I think we went into phase 1 of creating it, bring it together. Phase 2. Getting the group or educating others in a way, or enabling others. And now is more let others, when I say others, is outside of the working group or the design team or the customer experience team, to actually use them, and how we play the role of being there to support and keep the ball rolling, keep it alive, update it as well. And I think that's the key, because if you don't update it, that's another problem, right? It's become another artifact on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Well, unfortunately, it's time to wrap up. It's been so great to chat, Vida. You've given us a lot to think about. So thanks for coming on and joining me on the podcast.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Justin, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. Some amazing insights from a great design leader. If you found this insightful, make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button now, as we have some great episodes coming up. And if you have any questions or would like to chat, reach out to us at customersmarts.co. Catch you next time.